Most people don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because they spend their entire life asking permission to become who they already are. There is a strange tragedy happening quietly in the world. People are shrinking themselves to fit rooms they were never meant to stay in. They silence their ideas so others feel comfortable. They lower their standards to avoid loneliness. They tolerate disrespect because being chosen feels safer than being alone. And somewhere in that slow negotiation with mediocrity, they forget their worth. Tonight, I want to talk to the part of you that is exhausted from pretending to be ordinary. I am Goswami, psychologist and best-selling author. Let me tell you about something which can never settle for your success. There comes a moment in life when you realize something terrifying. Nobody is coming to tell you that you are enough. No grand announcement, no perfect timing, no universal permission slip, just you, standing in front of your own reflection, wondering whether you will spend another year betraying yourself to keep other people comfortable. Most people settle long before they realize it, not just in relationship, not just in careers. They settle in the way they speak, the way they dream, the way they negotiate with life itself. They begin to treat their deepest desire like unrealistic fantasies instead of instructions from the soul. And the frightening part is settling rarely feels dramatic. It feels practical, responsible, safe. That is how people slowly abandon themselves without even noticing. A man stays in a job that empties him because stability sounds wiser than possibility. A woman keeps accepting half-hearted love because loneliness scares her more than emotional starvation. A gifted artist hides behind perfectionism because if they never truly try, they never truly fail. Human beings are experts at building prisons that look like routines. But here is what nobody tells you. The people who build extraordinary lives are not always the smartest, not always the luckiest, not always the most connected. They are simply the ones who became emotionally unavailable to a life beneath their potential. That changes everything because once you truly understand your worth, your tolerance changes. You stop chasing validation from people who can't even validate themselves. You stop begging for seats at tables where your absence was never respected. You stop apologizing for ambition. And suddenly your energy returns, your fire returns, your standard returns. Being different is expensive, my friends. People celebrate uniqueness in theory, but punish it in real life. The moment you stop forthcoming, you will notice something uncomfortable. Some people not love the version of you they could control. The quieter version, the smaller version, the insecure version that needed approval to survive. But growth changes relationship dynamics. When you begin respecting yourself, manipulating people lose access to you. When you raise your standards, insecure people call you arrogant. When you stop settling, average minds call you unrealistic. And this is where many people retreat back into comfort. Not because they lack vision, but because isolation feels unbearable at first. Yet every empire begins with isolation. Every meaningful transformation requires a season where nobody understands your decisions. That is the hidden psychological cost of becoming extraordinary. You outgrow conversation, you outgrow environments, sometimes you even outgrow identities you spent years building. And honestly, that grieving process is real because becoming who you are meant to be often requires mourning who you had to pretend to be for survival. But there is another side waiting for you, a side where your self respect becomes stronger than your fear of rejection. A side where discipline replaces self-doubt. A side where no longer need constant applause because your purpose has become louder than public opinion. That's when the empire starts forming. Not the empire of money alone, but the empire of mind, the empire of standards, the empire of emotional resilience. Real power begins when your inner world stops depending on external approval, and suddenly you walk differently. Not loud, not crueler, not ego driven, just certain. Certain that your life deserves depth, certain that your dreams deserve effort, certain that your future cannot be built by betraying yourself every day. Because the truth is, your life changes the moment you stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What if I betray my potential by never fully trying?" Imagine yourself years from now, standing face to face with person you could have become. The stronger version, the disciplined version, the fearless version. And imagine realizing they existed the entire time. But you abandoned them for comfort, approval, and temporary safety. That realization destroys people, not failure, regret. Because failure can teach you, failure can build you, failure can sharpen you. But regret haunts quietly. It follows people into old age, not because they lost, but because they never fully lived. So dare to be different, my friends, not for attention, not to feel superior, because your soul knows when you are playing small, and deep down you are tired of abandoning yourself. You were not born to spend your life shrinking for acceptance. You were not born to negotiate your worth with people who cannot recognize value beyond convenience. You were not born to build somebody else's empire while your own dreams collect dust in silence. The fire inside you was never meant to stay decorative. It was meant to build, to transform, to illuminate. And maybe the real meaning of self-worth is this: having the courage to become person your younger self desperately needed to see, even if nobody understands it at first, especially then. Remember, my friends, most people do not fail because they lack talent. They fail because they slowly become comfortable betraying themselves. Your empire begins the moment your self-respect becomes stronger than your fear of rejection. Settling rarely feels tragic in beginning. It feels safe. Human beings are experts in building prisons that look like routines. Regret is heavier than failure because it carries the weight of unlived potential. Some people only loved the version of you they could control. Your soul always knows when you are playing small. All the best.